High Elves. Their campaign is... it's fine. It's not my favorite, but I'm not a huge elf enjoyer. It is an empire builder. You're not going to be doing a lot of raiding. You'll be mostly trying to secure Ulthuan, your big donut island in the middle of the world, and from there expanding your naval power and trying to use diplomatic influence to keep the forces of chaos and evil at bay. You are the good guy. You are the protagonist. You are the only character that matters. Lethanar does have a kind of a cool Batman-style campaign. So does Eltharion the Grim against an entirely different faction. And then Imrik just wanders around the world looking for cool dragons. That's all he wants out of life. But there's a lot of different campaigns for you to try. A lot of your early games will start with Spearman and Archer spam, but the late game does get pretty interesting. You can either go into specialized heavy infantry builds, elite cavalry builds, monster builds with phoenixes and dragons. There's a lot of ways you can go in the late game, though I will admit the early game for High Elves, after you've played it once or twice, can get a little dry. But just power through. It's well worth it. Playing as the High Elves, you have a wide variety of lords that all do different things. And actually in Game 3, most of them are performing pretty well. Even some of the generic lords are doing just fine, such as the Archmages and the Princes. Imrik has risen in popularity with his Vuvuzela of Doom. Dragonhorde, there it is. Global plus 24 melee attack and causes fear. Lord of Dragons is a nice debuff, and some debuffs attached to lords only can affect other lords or heroes. This can actually affect anybody, which can really boost High Elf cavalry duel potential. So that is quite nice. And Lethanar is a nice kite lord. Tekla, Solariel, good mages for different reasons. Yeah, a lot of good lords. Their lord options are excellent. Their heroes, on the other hand, are more of a necessity than good. Princes are decent duelists, but maybe overpriced unless they get massive heal support. Handmaidens are useful in some kite builds, but again, very expensive. And mages are good if you don't have a mage lord, but otherwise, I mean, you don't want to double up on mages. So their heroes are lacking while their lords are pretty good. High Elves in general are expensive, so you're going to have a smaller build. This can be easier to control for some newer players, and their high leadership means they won't route very often. They can be a new player-friendly experience in your army. The problem with that is High Elves are also very fragile, so any mistakes you make are heavily punished. So, controlling the army is new player-friendly. Strategizing with the army is new player difficult, making them a mixed difficulty faction. Your infantry at the low tier are pretty trash. You need them. You need them to hold. Rangers will slightly kill more than their spearman cousins. Spearmen will hold. So if you need to hold, take spearmen. If you need to kill, take rangers. White lions have some armor piercing, but they're mid-tier infantry. High-tier infantry, taking one or two can be okay into melee-focused builds, whether you're rushing or someone's rushing you. Swordmasters or Phoenix Guard could be good sweepers for your backline. Be careful, because they're so expensive. They could put a Shadest or Dwellers Below it or something. You're in big trouble. High Elf archers are excellent and varied. There's tons of skirmisher options, elite armor-piercing options, or cheap and chipper, mixed shield and lance hybrid archers. High Elf archers are excellent. Where their infantry suffer, their archers make up for that. Their light and high-tier cavalry are both pretty good, as well as their high-tier chariots, but again, their mid-tier cavalry and mid-tier chariots suffer. It is a reoccurring problem with the High Elves. And their kite cavalry is fine, though it is one note, because there's only one version of it, honestly. The missile chariot is not super good at kiting. It's just another chariot. It's fine. Their monsters are mixed. The dragons are pretty good, but need a ton of heal support, and the phoenixes are standalone fine, but they do have a problem with clearing out hordes. They're just a fine monster. And their artilleries are serviceable, but not excellent. Advice for playing the High Elves. You gotta learn your matchups. You gotta learn really good dragon breath attack play. If you're gonna win a lot of your games, you will rely on dragons to carry you through it. Phoenixes are also fine, but you just need to learn when you can and can't land a single entity and what situations are certain death for them. Otherwise, you'll lose an expensive unit. But if you can learn that, effective cycle charging and breath attacks will carry you through a lot of games. Also, you're going to have to learn cav micro, whether light cav to defend your backline or heavy cav to complete a rush, because your basic infantry micro isn't going to carry you through the game. High Elves infantry will never carry you in a competitive match. They're necessary and they're fine, but it's not their best strength at all. So pick a good lord, pick some good cav, pick some good monsters, play well with them, and you will be fine. If you're playing against High Elves, all of their infantry is expensive. All of their infantry can be murdered, and without it, the High Elves are at a bit of a loss. So taking nice, strong anti-infantry tools is good to bust through their expensive front line and really hurt them in their pocketbook. You do need something to compromise their backline at all times. Their archers cannot be left alone or you will suffer badly, and you do need to watch out for the flanks. If you can't take a cav fight, you're going to need some monstrous infantry near your backline to protect your archers or to protect from frequent cycle charging on the back of your line. Monstrous infantry are demons against the High Elves. Monstrous infantry counter both their chariots and their cavalry and their monsters, because if a Star Dragon or a Phoenix wants to land and there's a bunch of Rat Ogres or Chaos Spawn waiting for them, they won't be able to leave the ground. So monstrous infantry, monstrous infantry, monstrous infantry versus the High Elves. You'll get your money back in spades. Other than that, grinding. You just need to grind them down. Wide armies, armor-piercing armies. If you have any cheap armor-piercing tools, probably want to take as many of it as possible versus the High Elves. You just need to kill as many of them as possible, and they'll run out of troops before you do. Cheap archers are also pretty good just for volume of fire. If you take anything elite, you might be in trouble because the High Elves are pretty good at a 1-to-1 on the elite level. They'll take you down. Swordmasters will trade well above their weight class, so will Phoenix Guard, Dragon Princes as well. Dragons are some of the best single-entity dueling monsters in the game, so yeah. Don't try to match the High Elves 1-for-1 on any elite level. Just drag them down under your bodies. Okay? Hopefully that helped. See you in a bit.
Roar! Subscribe, yes, yes.